Have you ever been looked down on by someone you loved? Have you ever been mocked for not having enough money, enough status, enough shine? Well, let me tell you about the night my sister Vanessa laughed at my Halloween costume in front of 200 people. She called it clearance rack chic. She rolled her eyes and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. Poor Lena, always trying so hard. But here's the thing. What she didn't know was that the stunning, custom-made designer gown she was wearing, the one everyone at the party couldn't stop complimenting, the one that made her feel like a queen, I designed it. My name is Lena Moore, and this is the story of how one Halloween night became the sweetest, most poetic revenge of my life. But to understand that night, you need to understand our whole story. The childhood, the dreams, the betrayal, and the long journey back to myself. So settle in, pour yourself some tea, and let me tell you everything. Growing up, Moore, Vanessa, and I weren't always enemies. There was a time when we were close, or at least I thought we were. We grew up in a small town called Millbrook, about 2 hours north of New York City. Our parents, David and Patricia Moore, ran a small hardware store that had been in the family for 3 generations. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We had a nice house with a big backyard, family dinners every Sunday, and parents who loved us. Vanessa was born on March 3, 1993. I came along 3 years later, on July 18, 1996. From the beginning, Vanessa was the golden child. She was beautiful. Long blonde hair, bright blue eyes, the kind of little girl who looked like she belonged in a catalog. She was outgoing and confident, always the star of every school play, every talent show, every social gathering. I was different. Quieter. I had mousy brown hair that never did what I wanted. Freckles I tried to hide with my mom's concealer, and a tendency to disappear into books and art projects instead of socializing. Our mom used to say we were complementary. Vanessa was the sun, bright and attention-grabbing, and I was the moon, soft and steady. She meant it kindly, but even as a kid I understood the implication. The sun was more important than the moon. Vanessa excelled at everything that got attention. She was homecoming queen, captain of the cheerleading squad, voted most likely to succeed in our high school yearbook. Everyone in Millbrook knew Vanessa Moore. I was the girl who spent lunch period in the art room, who won a few local art competitions but never made much noise about it, who was happy to blend into the background. I wasn't jealous of Vanessa. Not really. I loved my sister. I was proud of her. When she got accepted to NYU with a partial scholarship, I was the first one to hug her. But there was always this feeling, this quiet understanding, that Vanessa was destined for something big, and I was destined to be ordinary. Following dreams to New York when I graduated high school in 2014, I knew I wanted to do something with art. I'd always loved drawing, but somewhere around age 15, I discovered fashion design. I'd spend hours sketching dresses, cutting up old clothes and reconstructing them, watching Project Runway and dreaming about creating beautiful things that made people feel confident and special. My parents were supportive, but cautious. "Fashion is a tough industry, honey," my dad said. "Maybe you should study business too, have something to fall back on." But I was determined. I applied to the Fashion Institute of Technology in Manhattan and got accepted for the fall 2014 semester. It wasn't as prestigious as Parsons or Central St. Martin's, but it was a real fashion school in New York City, and I was thrilled. Vanessa had already been living in Manhattan for 3 years by then. She'd graduated from NYU with a degree in communications and had landed a job at a marketing firm. But more importantly, she'd started building her Instagram presence. This was 2014, when influencer culture was just starting to explode. Vanessa had about 50,000 followers and was doing sponsored posts for makeup brands and clothing companies. She lived in a tiny studio apartment in the East Village and was constantly networking, attending events, meeting people who could help her career. When I moved to New York in August 2014, Vanessa helped me find an apartment, a shoebox-sized room in a shared apartment in Queens with 2 other FIT students. The rent was $900 a month, which was more than I'd ever spent on anything in my life. "Welcome to New York," Vanessa had said, hugging me in my empty room. "It's expensive and exhausting, and you'll love it." She was right about all 3 things. The early years college was intense. FITE's fashion design program was competitive and demanding. We had classes on pattern making, draping, textiles, fashion history, illustration. I was in the studio until midnight most nights, my fingers cramped from sewing, my eyes strained from sketching. But I loved it. Every exhausting minute of it. I made friends. Claire, who I met in our fashion illustration class, became my closest confidant. She was studying fashion photography and had this wild, fearless energy that balanced out my quieter nature. We'd get cheap pizza at 2 a.m. after late studio sessions and talk about our dreams. "I'm going to shoot for Vogue someday," Claire would say confidently. "I'm going to have my own fashion line," I'd reply. And we'd clink our plastic cups of bodega wine, like we were making a sacred pact. Vanessa and I saw each other occasionally during those years. She'd invite me to influencer events sometimes, product launches, restaurant openings, fashion parties where everyone was beautiful and connected and I felt completely out of place. I remember one party in particular, at a rooftop bar in Soho in June 2015. Vanessa was there with her influencer friends, all of them taking endless selfies, sipping cocktails that cost $20 each. I'd come straight from class, exhausted with fabric scraps still stuck to my jeans. I stood in the corner, nursing a drink I couldn't really afford, watching Vanessa work the room. A guy approached me, tall, handsome, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "You're Vanessa's sister, right?" he said. "Yeah, I'm Lena." Cool. He looked me up and down. "So what do you do? Are you an influencer too?" "No, I'm studying fashion design." "Oh." His interest visibly deflated. "That's nice. Well, good luck with that." He walked away. That was the moment I realized that in Vanessa's world, what you did only mattered if it came with followers, with status, with visible success. My work, the long hours, the careful stitching, the creative process, was invisible. It didn't count. I left that party early and cried on the subway ride home. Growing apart after. I graduated from FIT in May 2018. I landed a job as a junior designer at a small fashion house in the garment district called Marcella & Co. It wasn't glamorous. I was basically an assistant to the assistants. But it was a real job in fashion. And I was grateful. The pay was terrible. I made $32,000 a year, which in New York City meant I was constantly broke. My apartment in Queens had a leak in the ceiling. My roommate's boyfriend practically lived with us, without paying rent, and I ate ramen more nights than I'd like to admit. But I was learning. I was around fabric and design and creativity every day, and I was secretly working on my own designs. The head designer at Marcella & Kober, a woman named Susan Chen, took me under her wing. She was in her 50s, had been in fashion for 30 years, and she saw something in me. "You have instinct, Lena," she told me one evening as we worked late on a collection. "You understand what makes a woman feel beautiful, not just what looks good on a runway." That's rare. Those words meant everything to me. I started staying late at the studio, with Susan's permission, to work on my own sketches. I dreamed of creating a line someday, something accessible but elegant, clothes that weren't for celebrities or influencers, but for regular women who wanted to feel special. Meanwhile, Vanessa's career was exploding. By 2019, she had over 800,000 Instagram followers. She'd quit her marketing job to focus on social media full-time. She was getting paid thousands of dollars for a single sponsored post, traveling to exotic locations for brand partnerships, attending exclusive events, and she'd started dating Richard Whitfield. Richard was old money. His family owned commercial real estate across Manhattan. He was handsome in that generic, preppy way, always wearing expensive suits and talking about his portfolio and his yacht. He was also 15 years older than Vanessa, which she said made him mature and sophisticated. I met him once, at a family dinner in December 2019. Our parents had driven down from Millbrook for the holidays, and Vanessa wanted to introduce Richard to everyone. We went to a restaurant in the Upper East Side where the cheapest entree was 65s. I'd worn my nicest dress, something I'd made myself from fabric I'd bought on sale, and I still felt underdressed. Richard barely acknowledged me the entire evening. He talked about real estate markets and investment strategies with my dad, complimented my mom's earrings, and spent most of the dinner taking photos of Vanessa for her Instagram. "Your sister is quite the success story," he said to me at one point, almost as an afterthought. "You must be proud." "I am," I said. "And what is it you do again?" "Something with fashion. I'm a designer." "I work at—" "That's great," he interrupted, already turning back to Vanessa. "Babe, we should do a post about this restaurant. The lighting is perfect." I spent the rest of the dinner in silence. That was the night I realized Vanessa and I lived in completely different worlds. And maybe we always had. The wedding dress dream in January 2020, everything changed. Vanessa got engaged. Richard proposed during a trip to the Maldives. She posted a video of the proposal that got 2 million views. The ring was enormous, at least 5 carats, probably worth more than I'd make in 5 years. The engagement kicked off a wedding planning frenzy. Vanessa posted about it constantly. Dress shopping, venue hunting, cake tastings, every detail documented for her followers. But nothing was good enough. I watched her Instagram stories in my tiny apartment, seeing her try on dress after dress at exclusive bridal boutiques. Vera Wang, Monique Lhuillier, Carolina Herrera. Each one cost more than my annual rent. "It's just not right," she'd say in her stories, sighing dramatically. "I need something unique, something that screams me, you know?" Her followers would comment, "You deserve perfection, queen. Nothing is too good for you. Keep looking, you'll find the one." Meanwhile, I was secretly working on something special. I'd been sketching wedding dresses in my spare time, not for anyone in particular, just because I loved the challenge. Wedding dresses are the ultimate design test. They have to be beautiful, timeless, comfortable, and meaningful all at once. One design in particular had become my obsession. I'd started it in February 2020, and I'd spent months refining every detail. It was elegant, but not overdone. The bodice was fitted, with delicate lace sleeves that looked like they were made of frost. The neckline was a subtle sweetheart shape that would flatter almost any figure. The skirt was layers of silk organza that flowed like water, with hand-beaded details scattered throughout like dewdrops catching the morning light. I'd sourced the lace from a small supplier in France. I'd saved up for months to afford it. The silk was from a fabric shop in the garment district where I'd negotiated a discount. The beads were vintage, from an estate sale in Brooklyn. It wasn't just a dress. It was a work of art. I made a full mock-up in muslin, adjusted the pattern a dozen times, and finally, in early August 2020, I had the complete design ready in my portfolio. I hadn't made the actual dress yet. I couldn't afford the materials without a client. But I had every detail planned, every measurement calculated, every bead placement mapped out. That's when Vanessa came to visit. The request it was August 15th, 2020. Vanessa showed up at my apartment unannounced, which she almost never did. She usually wanted to meet at trendy cafes or restaurants, places where she could be seen. But that day, she came to Queens. She was wearing designer sunglasses and carrying a Chanel bag, and she looked completely out of place in my rundown building. "Lena," she said when I opened the door, and I immediately knew something was wrong. Her voice was small, vulnerable. "Can we talk?" We sat on my futon, the same futon that doubled as my bed, and she told me everything. The wedding planning was overwhelming her. Nothing felt right. Every dress she tried on felt like she was playing a character, wearing a costume of what a bride should look like, rather than expressing who she actually was. "I've tried on 47 dresses," she said, tears running down her face, ruining her makeup. 47, Lena, and none of them feel like me." I'd never seen my sister like this. Vulnerable, stripped of the Instagram polish. "Richard's mother has all these opinions," she continued. "She wants me to wear something traditional and classic because that's what Whitfield brides wear. My followers want me to wear something trendy and bold. Richard just wants me to be happy, but he doesn't understand why this is so hard." She grabbed my hands. "Lena, you're my sister. You've known me my whole life, and you're talented. I've seen your sketches, your designs. They're beautiful. Would you design my wedding dress?" My heart stopped. "What?" "Please," she said. "I know it's a lot to ask. I know you're busy, but I trust you. You know me, And you're the only person who can create something that's truly mine, not what everyone else wants me to be." I was speechless. Vanessa had barely acknowledged my work in years. She'd never shown interest in what I did, never asked to see my designs. And now she wanted me to create the most important dress of her life? "I don't know if I can," I said hesitantly. "I mean, I've never made an actual wedding dress before. Just sketches and mock-ups." "I don't care," she interrupted. "I believe in you. You're my little sister and you're incredibly talented, and I would be honored to wear something you made." She was looking at me with such sincerity, such hope, that I felt my resistance melting. "Can I show you something?" I said finally. I pulled out my portfolio and showed her the wedding dress design I'd been working on. Vanessa's eyes went wide. She touched the sketch like it was precious, tracing the lines with her finger. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Lena, this is perfect. This is exactly what I've been dreaming of. It's elegant but modern. It's romantic but not too sweet. It's me." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Please make this for me, please. I'll pay you, obviously. Whatever you need for materials. Whatever your time is worth. This is the dress." I felt tears pricking my own eyes. For the first time in years, I felt truly close to my sister. She saw my work. She valued it. She wanted it. "Okay," I said. "I'll make your wedding dress." We hugged, both of us crying, and for that moment, everything felt right between us. Creating the dress. The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. Vanessa paid me $5,000 upfront for materials, more money than I'd ever had at once. I quit my job at Marcella & Co. Susan understood and gave me her blessing, and dedicated myself completely to the dress. I rented a small studio space in Brooklyn, just a corner of a shared workspace, but it was mine. I set up my sewing machine, my dress form, my materials. I worked 16-hour days, sometimes 18. I'd fall asleep at my machine and wake up with fabric impressions on my face. The lace sleeves alone took 2 weeks. Each one had to be hand-sewn to create the illusion of frost. The beading was done entirely by hand. I placed each bead individually, using a technique I'd learned from a vintage couture book. There were over 2,000 beads on that dress. My fingers bled. I got calluses on top of calluses. My back ached from hunching over the sewing machine. I lost 12 pounds because I kept forgetting to eat, but the dress was coming together, and it was beautiful. Claire would visit me in the studio, bringing coffee and sandwiches, making sure I didn't completely lose myself in the work. "This dress better get you some serious credit," she said one evening in October, photographing my progress. "This is museum-quality work, Lena." "It's for my sister's wedding," I said, carefully attaching a section of beading. "That's credit enough. Is it, though?" Claire asked. "I mean, she's going to post this all over Instagram. You should at least get tagged, get some exposure." "We'll figure that out later," I said. "Right now, I just want to make sure it's perfect." Vanessa came for fittings 3 times. Each time she'd gasp when she saw the progress, taking photos but promising not to post them until after the wedding. "I want it to be a surprise," she said. "Everyone's going to die when they see this dress." The wedding was scheduled for June 12th, 2021. I finished the dress on May 28th, with 2 weeks to spare. When Vanessa came for the final fitting, she cried. Real tears, not Instagram tears. "Lena," she whispered, looking at herself in the mirror. "I've never felt more beautiful in my life. This dress, you've made me look like the person I've always wanted to be." I cried too. "You look perfect." "I'm going to make sure everyone knows you made this," she said firmly. "This is your work, your art. Everyone's going to know my little sister is a genius." I believed her. The wedding day, June 12th, 2021. The Plaza Hotel, New York City. The wedding was everything you'd expect from a Whitfield Moore union. 400 guests. Flowers that cost more than my studio rent for 6 months. A 12-piece orchestra. Champagne fountains. Everything dripping with luxury. I attended as family, of course, but I also stayed close to make sure the dress was perfect throughout the day. I'd brought a small emergency kit with me. Needle and thread, spare beads, safety pins, stain remover, everything a designer would need. Vanessa looked absolutely radiant. The dress fit perfectly, moved beautifully, caught the light exactly as I'd planned. Every person who saw her gasped, "Who made that dress?" I heard people whisper, "It's stunning. It's perfect. She looks like a princess." I stood in the back during the ceremony, watching my sister marry Richard, wearing my creation. I felt proud, fulfilled, like I'd achieved something truly special. The reception was even more lavish. The ballroom was decorated with thousands of white roses. The cake was 7 tiers tall. There was a performance by a famous singer whose name I can't mention. And then came the speeches. Richard's father spoke about family legacy. Vanessa's maid of honor told embarrassing stories from college. Richard talked about how lucky he was to have found Vanessa, and then Vanessa herself took the microphone. "I want to thank everyone who made today possible," she said, smiling radiantly. "Our incredible wedding planner, Margaret, who dealt with all my crazy requests. The team at the Plaza, who made this venue absolutely magical. My amazing makeup artist, Sasha, who made me look like this." She paused, taking a breath, and I waited for her to mention me. Richard's mother, Barbara, for her impeccable taste and guidance. My girls for being the best bridesmaids anyone could ask for. And most importantly, my husband, Richard, for making me the happiest woman in the world. She raised her glass. Everyone cheered and clinked glasses. She never mentioned me. Not once. I told myself she was nervous. She probably just forgot. She'd mention it later, maybe in a private moment. Or in her Instagram posts. Yes, that's where she'd give me credit. I stayed through the whole reception, smiling and nodding when distant relatives complimented Vanessa's dress, saying nothing about my involvement. I went home at 1 a.m., exhausted, telling myself tomorrow would be different. The Instagram post I didn't hear from Vanessa for a week after the wedding. She and Richard had gone to Bora Bora for their honeymoon. I went back to my studio, unsure what to do next. I'd quit my job to make the dress. I'd spent 3 months on that one project. Now I needed to figure out my next move. Claire convinced me to start building a portfolio website, to reach out to small boutiques, to see if I could get some commission work. "You just made a wedding dress that people literally gasped at," Claire said. "This is your moment, Lena. Use it." But I felt paralyzed. I'd poured everything into that dress, and now it was gone, and I didn't know how to move forward. Then, on June 26, 2021, Vanessa posted, it was a carousel of wedding photos. Her and Richard at the altar, the first kiss, walking down the aisle, close-ups of the dress, the details, the beading, the lace. She looked absolutely perfect. The caption read, "Best day of my life." I'm blessed to have worn a custom original by renowned designer Antoine Beaumont for my special day. When only the best will do. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding. Antoine Beaumont was a legendary French designer. High fashion, celebrities and royalty, dresses that started at $50,000. He hadn't designed Vanessa's dress. I had. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I immediately called Vanessa. It rang 4 times, then 5, then went to voicemail. I called again. This time she picked up. "Hey, Lena. Sorry, we're at this amazing beach restaurant. Can I call you back later?" "Vanessa," I said, my voice trembling. "I just saw your Instagram post. The one about your wedding dress. Silence on the other end. Why did you say Antoine Beaumont made it?" I asked. More silence. Then a sigh. "Lena, can we talk about this later? Richard and I are literally in the middle of—" "No," I interrupted, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "We're talking about this now. I made that dress. You know I made it. Why did you lie?" Another sigh, this one annoyed. "I didn't lie. I reframed the narrative." "You what?" "Look," Vanessa said, her voice taking on that condescending tone I knew too well. "I couldn't tell my followers that my little sister made the dress in a studio in Brooklyn. That sounds cheap, Lena. Homemade. My brand is luxury, aspiration, high fashion. My followers expect me to wear designer originals." It was an original. I was practically yelling now. "I designed it. I made every single stitch." "But you're not famous," she said simply. "You're not a name brand. No one knows who Lena Moore is, but everyone knows Antoine Beaumont. So I reached out to his team, we worked out an arrangement, and they agreed to claim credit. It's a business transaction." "You paid someone to pretend they made my dress?" "I paid for marketing," she corrected. "And honestly, you should be grateful." The exposure I'm giving Antoine Beaumont's brand is worth way more than the dress itself. This is good for everyone, except for me, I shouted. I spent 3 months making that dress. I bled for it. You said you'd give me credit. And I will, she said impatiently. I'll tell our family you made it. I'll tell my close friends. But publicly? On Instagram. I need it to be a designer name. That's just how this works. That's not how this works, I said. That's my art, my design. You can't just... Lena, you're being incredibly selfish right now. Vanessa interrupted, her voice cold. I gave you $5,000. I gave you the opportunity to create a wedding dress. Most designers would kill for that experience. And this is how you thank me? By throwing a tantrum? I was crying now, tears streaming down my face. I'm not throwing a tantrum. I'm asking for basic recognition for my work. And I'm telling you that in my world, recognition comes with credentials. Maybe if you'd gone to Parsons instead of Fit. Maybe if you'd worked for a real fashion house instead of that nobody company. Maybe if you'd built an actual career instead of playing around in a Brooklyn studio, then your name would mean something. But right now, it doesn't. So I made a business decision. Each word felt like a slap. You used me, I whispered. I gave you an opportunity, she corrected. There's a difference. Now I really need to go. Richard's waiting. We'll talk when I get back from honeymoon, okay? Love you. She hung up. I sat in my studio, surrounded by fabric scraps and sketches, and cried harder than I'd cried in years. The confrontation Vanessa returned from her honeymoon in early July. I'd sent her multiple texts and voicemails, asking to talk, but she'd ignored all of them. Finally, on July 10th, I showed up at her penthouse. The doorman tried to stop me. Miss Whitfield isn't accepting visitors without an appointment. I'm her sister, I said firmly. Tell her Lena is here and I'm not leaving until we talk. 5 minutes later, I was in the elevator to the penthouse. Vanessa opened the door wearing athleisure that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She looked tanned and relaxed and annoyed to see me. Lena, this really isn't a good time. Richard and I are about to head to a brunch in the Hamptons. I don't care, I said, pushing past her into the apartment. The penthouse was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Designer furniture. Original artwork on the walls. This was the life my sister had built. The world she inhabited. You owe me an apology, I said, turning to face her. For what? She crossed her arms defensively. For lying about who made your dress. For stealing credit for my work. For dismissing me like I'm nothing. Vanessa sighed. Lena, I explained this on the phone. This is how the industry works. This is how branding works. You're taking it too personally. It is personal, I shouted. That was my work. My design, my art. And you erased me. I didn't erase you, she said calmly. I optimized the narrative. There's a difference. Stop talking like you're in a marketing meeting, I said. I'm your sister. Don't you care that you hurt me? For a moment, just a moment, I saw something flicker in her expression. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But then it was gone, replaced by cold indifference. You know what your problem is, Lena? She said. You're too emotional. Too sensitive. You take everything personally instead of seeing the bigger picture. I've built a brand worth millions of dollars. I have over 1 million followers. I'm invited to exclusive events. I work with major companies. I've made something of myself. And you? You're making dresses in a basement studio in Brooklyn and expecting the world to celebrate you for it. That's not fair, I whispered. Life isn't fair, she said. I learned that a long time ago. I learned that if you want to be successful, you have to be strategic. You have to think about optics and branding and how everything looks. You live in this fantasy world where talent is enough, where hard work is enough. But it's not. You need strategy. You need connections. You need to be willing to make hard decisions. Like stealing credit from your own sister. Like doing what needs to be done for your career, she corrected. And honestly, you should be thanking me. I'm teaching you how this world really works. Maybe it's a harsh lesson, but it's one you need to learn. I stared at her. This person who looked like my sister, but felt like a stranger. I will never forgive you for this, I said quietly. She shrugged. That's your choice. But it won't change anything. The post stays up. The story stays the same. And you move on. Why? I asked, tears streaming down my face. Why are you like this? We used to be close. We used to care about each other. When did you become so cold? For a moment, Vanessa's mask slipped. I saw something in her eyes. Sadness, maybe, or loneliness. But she blinked it away. I became successful, she said simply. And sometimes that requires sacrifices. Now please leave. I have brunch plans. I left, but not before I took one last look at the penthouse, at the life she'd built on other people's work, on carefully crafted lies, on a brand more important than family. I took the elevator down, walked out into the bright July afternoon, and made a decision. I was done with Vanessa Moore Whitfield. Chapter 11. Leaving New York, I couldn't stay in New York after that. Everything reminded me of Vanessa, of the dress, of the betrayal. Claire tried to convince me to stay. You can't let her win. You've worked so hard. I need to leave, I said. I need to start over somewhere she isn't. In August 2021, I packed everything I owned into my car and drove across the country to Portland, Oregon. I'd chosen Portland almost at random. It was far from New York. It was creative and quirky and rainy. It seemed like a good place to disappear. I rented a tiny studio apartment above a coffee shop in the Alberta Arts District. The rent was $750 a month, nearly half what I'd been paying in Queens, and it had big windows that let in soft gray light. For the first 2 months, I didn't design anything. I got a job waiting tables at a breakfast diner called Stella's. I made decent money from tips, and the work was mindless in a way I needed. I didn't have to think, didn't have to create, didn't have to risk my heart on something someone might steal. My coworkers at Stella's were kind. They didn't ask too many questions about why I'd moved to Portland or what I'd done before. I was just Lena, the new girl who was quiet but good at her job. Claire called me every week. When are you coming back? She'd ask. I'm not, I'd say. You can't hide forever. Watch me. But slowly, painfully, I started to heal. Portland was gentler than New York. People smiled at each other on the street. The coffee shop below my apartment played jazz music every morning. The rain was constant but soothing. And in November 2021, I started sketching again. Chapter 12. Finding myself again. It started small. Just little drawings in a notebook while I drank coffee before work. Nothing serious. Nothing with any intention behind it. But sketching felt like breathing again. By December, I'd filled an entire sketchbook. Dresses, jackets, evening wear, casual pieces. Designs that felt different from what I'd done before. Less about perfection, more about emotion. Claire flew out to visit me for New Year's. She took one look at my apartment, covered in sketches, fabric samples from local shops, mannequin in the corner, and started laughing. You can't help yourself, can you? She said. I guess not, I admitted. Good, she said, because I've been waiting for you to remember who you are. That night, over cheap champagne and takeout Thai food, Claire made me promise something. You're going to design again, she said. Really design. Not for anyone else. Not for money or recognition or approval. Just for you. Just because you love it. Promise me. I promise, I said. And I meant it. In January 2022, I made my first dress in Portland. It was for me, just a simple sundress in dusty blue linen. I wore it to work, and one of the regular customers asked where I'd bought it. I made it, I said. Really? It's beautiful. Would you ever make one for me? I'd pay you. Her name was Margaret, a retired art teacher in her 60s with kind eyes and silver hair. She became my first client in Portland. I made her a dress in soft green cotton, with thoughtful details, pockets deep enough for books, sleeves that could be rolled up or left down, a hemline that moved beautifully. It cost her $200 and took me 2 weeks. When she picked it up, she cried. I haven't felt this beautiful in years, she said. You have a gift, Lena. Word spread slowly, the way it does in creative communities. Margaret told her book club. Someone from her book club told her yoga instructor. The yoga instructor told her gallery owner friend. By March 2022, I was getting regular requests. Nothing fancy. Casual dresses, work pieces, special occasion outfits for women who wanted something unique but couldn't afford designer prices. I kept my day job at the diner but started spending my evenings and weekends designing. My apartment became my studio. The coffee shop owners below didn't mind when I ran my sewing machine late into the night. And something surprising happened. I was happy. Not the anxious, desperate happiness of trying to prove myself. Just quiet contentment. I was creating things I loved for people who appreciated them. No drama, no stolen credit. Just good work and satisfied clients. Chapter 13. The Pseudonym in June 2022. One of my clients, a woman named Sandra who owned a small boutique in the Pearl District, approached me with an idea. "I want to carry your pieces in my store," she said. "But I need you to have a brand name. Something I can market." I hesitated. I don't know if I want to brand myself. The whole point of coming here was to avoid all that. "It doesn't have to be your real name," Sandra suggested. "Use a pseudonym. Keep your privacy, but give your work an identity." That night, I thought about it. I didn't want to use Moore. That was my family name, tied to Vanessa. I didn't want to be found, didn't want anyone connecting my new life to my old one. I remembered my grandmother, my mom's mother, whose maiden name was Morgan. She'd been a seamstress in the 1950s and 60s, making beautiful clothes for women in her small town. She'd passed away when I was 12, but I remembered her sewing room, the smell of fabric and old thread, the way she'd let me watch her work. L. Morgan. It felt right. Anonymous enough to protect me, meaningful enough to honor someone who'd inspired me. I created a simple website, L. Morgan Designs. No photos of myself, no personal information, just beautiful images of my work, a contact form, and a simple statement. Custom designs for women who deserve to feel extraordinary. Sandra started carrying my pieces in her boutique. They sold well, not fast but steadily. Women would try on one of my dresses, and you could see their posture change, their confidence bloom. By the end of 2022, I had a small following, nothing huge, maybe a few hundred people who knew about L. Morgan Designs. But they were loyal. They told their friends. They came back for more, and I remained completely anonymous. Chapter 14. The Breakthrough in February 2023. Something unexpected happened. An actress named Juliet Henderson, not A-list, but known, someone who'd been in a few indie films and a popular streaming series, was in Portland for a film festival. She wandered into Sandra's boutique and tried on one of my dresses. She bought it on the spot and wore it to a festival party that night. A photographer from a Portland lifestyle magazine captured her in the dress. The photo ended up in their next issue with the caption, "Actress Juliet Henderson in L. Morgan Designs, available exclusively at Pearl District Boutique." My website crashed from traffic the next day. Suddenly, I was getting inquiries from all over the country. California, Texas, New York. Even a few international requests. Sandra called me, excited and slightly panicked. L. Morgan, we need to talk about scaling up. This is huge, but I wasn't ready to go big. I didn't want a factory or mass production or investors. I wanted to keep creating custom pieces, working with individual clients, maintaining quality and integrity. So I got strategic. I raised my prices significantly, not because I was greedy, but because I could only take a limited number of commissions, and I wanted to work with clients who truly valued custom work. I hired 2 local seamstresses to help with construction, while I focused on design and finishing work. I moved out of my studio apartment and into a real workspace, a small storefront in the Alberta Arts District with big windows and good light. Claire had moved to Portland by then. She'd decided New York wasn't for her either, and she became my unofficial business partner, handling photography, social media, and client communications. "You realize you're actually successful now, right?" she said one evening as we worked late in the studio. "Like, legitimately successful." "It feels different this time," I said. "It's mine. Nobody can take it away from me. And Vanessa has no idea." I smiled. "And Vanessa has no idea." Chapter 15. The move back to New York. By early 2024, L. Morgan Designs had become known in certain circles. Not mainstream famous, I still refused magazine interviews, didn't show my face online, and kept my client list private through NDAs. But among women who appreciated high-quality, custom fashion, Elle Morgan was a name that meant something. Elegant, exclusive, worth the wait and the price. In April 2024, I made a decision. I was ready to go back to New York, not because I missed it, not because I'd forgiven Vanessa, but because I'd built something strong enough to withstand being in the same city as her. I was no longer the broken girl who'd fled 3 years earlier. I was Elle Morgan, and I was coming home. Claire came with me. We found a beautiful studio space in Brooklyn and Williamsburg, with exposed brick walls and huge windows overlooking the East River. The rent was expensive, but I could afford it now. I hired 3 more seamstresses, all talented women I'd connected with through fashion circles. I bought better equipment, better materials, invested in my business properly, and I kept my identity secret. It sounds paranoid, but I had my reasons. I didn't want the attention, didn't want to be interviewed about my process or my journey, and most importantly, I didn't want anyone connecting Elle Morgan to Lena Moore, sister of influencer Vanessa Moore Whitfield. I wanted my work to exist independently, to be judged on its own merit, to prove that I didn't need my sister's world to be successful. By August 2024, I was fully established in New York. My calendar was booked 3 months in advance. I had a wait list. My prices had tripled from where they'd started in Portland. And then, on September 3rd, I got the email that would change everything. Chapter 16. The Mysterious Commission. Subject: Commission for October event. Urgent message. Hello, I'm reaching out on behalf of a high-profile client who needs a custom costume design for a Halloween charity gala on October 31st. Money is no object. The theme is dark elegance, and the client wants something that will absolutely stun. She's seen your work and specifically requested you. Please reply ASAP if you're available. Confidentiality required. Miranda Chen, personal assistant. I stared at the email for a long time. Halloween was less than 2 months away. Rush commissions usually weren't worth the stress, but the budget Miranda quoted in our follow-up call was staggering. $18,000 for a single costume. My client is very influential in social media circles, Miranda explained on the phone. She wants a Marie Antoinette-inspired costume, but elevated. Modern, dark, unforgettable. She's seen your work and specifically requested Elle Morgan designs. Can I ask who the client is? I said. I'm not at liberty to say until after the event, Miranda said apologetically. She values her privacy during the design process. But I can assure you she's someone whose endorsement could be very valuable for your brand. I should have asked more questions. Should have insisted on knowing who I was designing for. But $18,000 was $18,000. And I loved a design challenge. Send me her measurements and any reference images she has in mind, I said. I'll create something incredible. For the next 6 weeks, I poured myself into that costume. It became my obsession, my masterpiece. The base was a structured corset in deep burgundy velvet. I sourced it from a supplier in Italy, the kind of velvet that looked like liquid wine. Over it, I layered black French lace in an intricate pattern, hand-cut and hand-sewn to create the illusion of shadows and depth. The bodice was embroidered with tiny garnets and black pearls, over 3,000 of them, each one hand-sewn in a pattern that suggested thorns and roses. It took my team and me 3 weeks just to complete the beading. The skirt was a construction marvel, layers upon layers of black tulle and silk, structured with hidden hoops to create a dramatic silhouette that was both historical and modern. I added touches of gold leaf to the hem and bodice, not too much, just enough to catch the light like treasure glimpsed in darkness. The collar was my favorite part, black feathers and lace, arranged to frame the face like a dark halo. It was removable, so the wearer could adjust the drama level, and the mask, oh, the mask. I commissioned a local artisan to create a custom masquerade mask, which I then embellished with genuine Swarovski crystals in black and deep red. It was a work of art in itself. When it was finished on October 28th, I stood back and looked at it on the dress form. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever created. Dark, powerful, elegant, unforgettable. Marie Antoinette reimagined as a Gothic queen, a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to demand recognition. Claire photographed it from every angle for our archives. "Whoever this mystery client is," she said, "she's going to look absolutely incredible." I carefully packed the costume in layers of tissue paper in a custom garment bag. I included a handwritten note on my signature cardstock. "Wear it well. L. Morgan I shipped it on October 28th, with insurance and tracking, and I still had no idea who I'd designed it for." Chapter 17. The invitation on October 15th. While I was still working on the mystery costume, I received an invitation in the mail. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, embossed with gold lettering. When I opened it, my heart stopped. "The Whitfield family requests the pleasure of your company at the annual Halloween Charity Gala, October 31st, 2024. Black tie. Costumes encouraged, Whitfield Estate, East Hampton. Benefiting the Manhattan Arts Foundation." Inside was a handwritten note in Vanessa's distinctive loopy handwriting. "Lena, I know we haven't spoken in years, but I'd love for you to come. It's time we reconnected. Family is important." I must have read it 20 times, my hands trembling. Why now? After 3 years of silence? After everything she'd done? Claire read the invitation over my shoulder. "You're not seriously considering going, are you?" "I don't know," I whispered. "Lena, she stole credit for your work. She dismissed you. She made you feel worthless. Why would you put yourself through seeing her again?" "Because maybe I need to," I said slowly. "Maybe I need to prove to myself that she can't hurt me anymore. That I've moved on. Or maybe you just want her to see that you're successful now." "Maybe that too," I admitted. I spent 2 weeks debating. Part of me wanted to ignore the invitation completely, but another part, a stubborn, defiant part, wanted to show up. To look my sister in the eye as an equal. To prove I'd survived without her. I decided to go, but I wasn't going to play her game of designer labels and expensive costumes. I wasn't going to try to compete in her world of luxury and status. I was going as myself. Simple, honest, unimpressed. Chapter 18. The Cheap Costume. I made my Halloween costume in a single evening, on October 30th. I went to a thrift store in Brooklyn and found a simple black dress for $12. I modified it slightly, took in the waist, added a small flare to the skirt. I found a witch's hat at a party supply store for $8. I wore my grandmother's old black boots that I'd been wearing for years, added striped stockings, some dark makeup, a broomstick I decorated with black ribbons. Total cost, maybe $35. Claire looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You're going to a gala full of rich people in the Hamptons dressed like a dollar store witch?" "Yep," I said, adjusting my hat. "I'm not trying to impress anyone, especially not Vanessa. I'm going on my own terms." "You're either very brave or very stupid," Claire said. "Maybe both," I admitted. The morning of October 31st, I was having serious doubts. Maybe this was a terrible idea. Maybe I should just fake sick, stay home, forget the whole thing. But I'd come this far. I'd built a whole new life. I'd become successful without Vanessa's help or approval. I could handle one party. Chapter 19. Arrival at the Whitfield Estate. The Uber ride to the Hamptons took 2 hours. I spent most of it staring out the window, my stomach in knots, my witch hat sitting on the seat beside me. The driver, a kind older man named James, tried to make conversation. "Big party tonight?" he asked. "Yeah, my sister's hosting. Nice of her to invite you." "Yeah," I said, not sure I agreed. When we pulled up to the Whitfield Estate, I almost asked James to turn around and take me back to Brooklyn. The house was massive. Not house, actually. Estate was the right word. A sprawling mansion made of gray stone, with soaring windows and perfectly manicured grounds. The driveway was lined with luxury cars, Teslas, Mercedes, BMWs, even a few Bentleys. Through the enormous windows, I could see chandeliers, candlelight, people in elaborate costumes moving through beautifully decorated rooms. "Wow," James said. "Your sister's got a nice place." "Yeah," I said quietly. "She does." I paid him, grabbed my broomstick and hat, and walked toward the entrance on shaking legs. A valet in a tuxedo opened the door for me. "Good evening, miss. Welcome to the Halloween Charity Gala." I stepped inside and immediately felt like I'd entered a different universe. The entrance hall was breathtaking. Black and orange lighting cast dramatic shadows. Enormous floral arrangements with black roses, orange lilies, and dark greenery filled every corner. Ice sculptures of ravens and Gothic castles glittered under the lights. A string quartet in a corner played something dark and elegant. I recognized it as a haunting version of Vivaldi's Winter, and the costumes. Oh, the costumes. I saw vampires in velvet cloaks with real jewelry at their throats. A woman dressed as Cleopatra in what had to be real gold. Elaborate steampunk creations with working gears and lights. A man dressed as the Phantom of the Opera, in a costume that probably cost more than my monthly rent. A couple dressed as Day of the Dead skeletons with intricate face paint and designer suits. Everyone was stunning, elaborate, expensive, and then there was me in my $35 thrift store witch costume. A server in a tuxedo approached with a tray of champagne flutes. "Champagne, miss?" "Thank you," I said, taking one with trembling hands. I tried to blend into a corner, observing the party without being observed. The house was even more incredible inside. High ceilings, original artwork, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything screamed wealth and taste and status. I lasted approximately 4 minutes before I heard her voice. Oh my God, is that Lena? I turned, my heart pounding, and there she was, Vanessa. Chapter 20. The Reunion. She looked stunning. Of course she did. She was wearing the most incredible costume I'd ever seen, a dark, Gothic Marie Antoinette. Burgundy velvet corset embroidered with garnets and black pearls, layers of black tulle and silk creating a silhouette that was both historical and modern, a dramatic collar of black feathers and lace, a masquerade mask glittering with crystals. It took my breath away. And then it hit me like a freight train. That was my costume. The one I'd been working on for 6 weeks, the Mystery Commission. Vanessa was wearing my design. She had no idea. She glided toward me. There's no other word for how she moved in that costume. Her face lit up with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Lena, oh my God, you actually came!" She air-kissed both my cheeks, her perfume overwhelming. "I'm so glad you could make it. It's been way too long." "Hi, Vanessa," I managed, my voice barely steady. "Thanks for inviting me." Her eyes swept over my costume, and I watched the exact moment her expression shifted from forced warmth to barely concealed amusement. Her eyebrows raised slightly. Her lips curved into a smile that was almost pitying. "Oh, wow. That's your costume?" She tilted her head, her voice dripping with condescension. "How vintage, very, authentic thrift store chic." "It's just a witch," I said, keeping my voice even. Simple, she repeated and laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. That's definitely one word for it. A small crowd had started to gather, beautiful people in expensive costumes, clearly friends of Vanessa's, influencers with perfect makeup and ring lights already out, her inner circle. They were all looking at me with that particular mix of curiosity and judgment that wealthy people reserve for those they consider beneath them. "Everyone, this is my little sister Lena," Vanessa announced, gesturing to me like I was a curiosity at a museum. "Isn't her costume so quaint? Very DIY, very clearance rack chic, so authentic and grassroots." A few people laughed. Polite, uncomfortable laughter. The kind people make when they don't want to offend their hostess but aren't quite sure if it's okay to laugh at someone. My face burned. My hands were shaking. For a moment, I was transported back to every time in my life I'd felt small compared to Vanessa. Every family gathering where she was the star, and I was an afterthought. Every achievement of hers that overshadowed mine. Every moment she made me feel like I wasn't enough. But then I looked at her costume again. My costume, my art, my countless hours of work and creativity and skill, and something inside me shifted. Some of us don't need to spend thousands of dollars to have a good time on Halloween, I said lightly, with a small smile. It's about creativity and joy, not cost. Vanessa's smile tightened just slightly. Of course, sweetie. Although, when you're hosting a charity event for Manhattan's elite, presentation matters. First impressions and all that. She smoothed her hands over her costume, clearly proud. This, for example, is an original L. Morgan design. Have you heard of them? Extremely exclusive designer. Very mysterious. Nobody knows who they are. I had to wait weeks to get this commissioned. The designer never even met me in person. Very exclusive process. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I think I've heard the name, I said carefully. You probably can't afford them, Vanessa said with a dismissive laugh. The consultation fee alone is more than, well, but maybe one day, right? When you finally get your life together and stop playing around with your little projects. She patted my shoulder the way you'd pat a child who'd tried their best but failed. Anyway, I should circulate. Help yourself to food and drinks, it's all complimentary. Try to mingle, okay? Don't just stand in the corner all night like you used to at parties. She leaned in closer and lowered her voice. And maybe next year if you come, invest in a proper costume? There are great rental places in the city. I can send you some recommendations. She glided away, her entourage following like ducklings, leaving me standing there with my cheap champagne and my thrift store costume. Several people were still staring at me, whispering behind their hands. I should have left right then. Should have called an Uber, gone home, accepted that coming here had been a mistake. But instead, I felt something different rising in me. Not hurt. Not shame, anger. Pure, clarifying anger. And beneath that, something even more powerful. Certainty. Vanessa had spent the last 3 years thinking she'd broken me. That she'd won. That I was still the same little sister she could dismiss and diminish. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was L. Morgan, and it was time everyone in this room knew it. Chapter 21. The plan I slipped away to a quiet corner of the mansion, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and leather furniture, and pulled out my phone with trembling hands. First, I texted Miranda Chen, the assistant who'd commissioned the costume. Me. Hi, Miranda. It's L. Morgan. Quick question. Can you confirm who's wearing the Marie Antoinette costume tonight? I've seen photos circulating and wanted to follow up. She responded within 2 minutes. Miranda. That's Vanessa Moore Whitfield. She's absolutely obsessed with the piece. Already asking about commissioning 3 more designs from you. She told me it's the most beautiful costume she's ever worn. Said she feels like true royalty. I nearly dropped my phone. 3 more commissions. She loved my work so much she wanted more, and she had absolutely no idea I'd created it. The irony was almost too perfect. Next, I texted Claire. Me. You're not going to believe this. Vanessa is wearing the mystery commission. She has no idea I made it. Claire. What? Are you serious right now? Me. Dead serious. She just made fun of my costume in front of everyone, called it clearance rack chic, then bragged about her exclusive L. Morgan design. Claire. Oh my God, what are you going to do? Me. Something crazy. Can you bring my portfolio to the Hamptons? The physical one with all my original sketches, design notes, and the photos of this costume in our studio? I need proof. Claire. Lena. What are you planning? Me. Justice. Claire. I love it. I'm leaving now. Be there in 90 minutes. I spent the next hour and a half watching the party, observing Vanessa work the room. She was in her element, laughing, posing for photos, collecting compliments on her costume like they were tribute. People kept approaching her to ask about the costume. Where did you get this? Who made it? It's absolutely stunning. And each time she'd smile and say, L. Morgan Designs, very exclusive. You probably haven't heard of them unless you run in certain circles. Each compliment she accepted for my work felt like vindication and theft all at once. At 8:45 p.m., Claire texted. Claire. Outside. Security won't let me in without an invitation. I went to the entrance and vouched for her. The security guard reluctantly let her through. Claire was dressed in all black, jeans, turtleneck, boots, and carried a sleek black portfolio case. She looked like she was on a mission. Okay, she said, handing me the case. I brought everything. Original sketches, design notes, progress photos with timestamps, the works. Whatever you're planning, make it count. Are you ready to photograph what happens next? I asked. Always, she said with a fierce grin, holding up her professional camera. Let's destroy her. Chapter 22. The charity auction at 9 p.m. The hall. Party transitioned to the main ballroom for the charity auction, the highlight of the evening. The ballroom was enormous, with a stage at one end and hundreds of guests seated at elegant tables. Giant screens on either side of the stage displayed the items being auctioned. Richard Whitfield took the stage in an elaborate Dracula costume. Cape, fangs, slicked back hair. He looked like he'd spent a fortune on it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. His voice boomed through the microphone. Thank you all for joining us for the 10th annual Whitfield Halloween Charity Gala. Applause filled the room. As you know, all proceeds from tonight's auction will benefit the Manhattan Arts Foundation, supporting emerging artists and arts education programs throughout New York City. More applause. People at my table, strangers who'd barely acknowledged me, were already pulling out their bidding paddles. The auction began. Item after item, each one more extravagant than the last. A weekend in Paris at a luxury hotel, $15,000. A private chef dinner for 12, $8,000. An original Banksy print, $40,000. A walk-on role in an upcoming HBO series, $25,000. A vintage Hermes Birkin bag, $18,000. The crowd was generous. The champagne was flowing. The atmosphere was electric. This was Vanessa's world. Wealth, status, casual displays of money that would change most people's lives, but was just a fun evening for them. Then Vanessa joined Richard on stage for a special auction item. She looked radiant in my costume, standing, in the spotlight, playing the role of the perfect philanthropic wife. And now, Richard announced, my beautiful wife has a very special item to auction. Vanessa took the microphone, her voice sweet and practiced. I'm offering a private styling session with me, complete with a tour of my closet, fashion advice, and a feature on my Instagram page, which has 2 million followers. Perfect for any aspiring influencer or fashion lover who wants to learn the secrets of building a luxury brand. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. Several younger women, clearly fans, were practically vibrating with excitement. We'll start the bidding at $5,000, Richard announced. Before anyone could raise a paddle, I stood up. My legs were shaking. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. I'd like to make a special donation, I called out. And I have something to add to tonight's auction. The room went quiet. Hundreds of heads turned toward me. The weird girl in the cheap witch costume. Vanessa's eyes found mine across the crowd. She looked confused, then annoyed. Richard squinted in my direction. I'm sorry, who? I'm Lena Moore, I said clearly, walking toward the stage. Vanessa's sister, and I'd like to donate something very special to tonight's auction. Something that will change your understanding of what you've been looking at all evening. The whispers started immediately. People pulling out their phones, ready to capture whatever was about to happen. I climbed the stairs to the stage. Claire followed with her camera, already shooting. Every eye in the room was on me. On my cheap costume, my messy hair, my complete lack of polish compared to everyone else here. Richard looked baffled. Vanessa looked alarmed. Lena, what are you doing? Vanessa hissed under her breath, her smile never leaving her face for the cameras. I ignored her and took the microphone from Richard's hand. Chapter 23. The Revelation. Good evening, everyone, I said, my voice echoing through the ballroom. First, I want to thank the Whitfields for hosting such a beautiful event. The mansion is stunning, the cause is wonderful, and I'm grateful to be here. Polite applause. Confused faces. Someone coughed. I'd like to auction off something unique tonight. An original design consultation and custom garment from an exclusive designer that many of you have heard of. L. Morgan Designs. Interested whispers rippled through the crowd. Several people sat up straighter, clearly recognizing the name. L. Morgan is known for creating one-of-a-kind pieces for clients who value artistry and exclusivity, I continued. In fact, someone in this room is wearing an L. Morgan original right now. I turned to face Vanessa directly. She was frozen, her face pale beneath her makeup. This Marie Antoinette costume that my sister is wearing, I designed it. I spent 6 weeks creating it by hand. I sewed every bead, constructed every layer, crafted every detail. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. What? Vanessa's voice was barely audible. I opened the portfolio case and pulled out my original sketches. Detailed drawings of the costume with fabric swatches attached. Notes about measurements and construction techniques. Time logs showing weeks of work. I sketched this design on September 5th, 2024, I said, holding the drawings up for everyone to see. Claire projected photos onto the screens behind us. Images I'd taken of the costume at various stages of construction, all with clear timestamps and my studio's distinctive backdrop. Your assistant, Miranda Chen, commissioned it through my website without revealing who the client was. I had no idea I was designing for my sister. I only found out when I walked in tonight and saw her wearing my work. I pulled out my phone and projected more images onto the screens. The finished costume on my dress form in my studio. Dated October 28th. Close-ups of the beadwork showing the precise technique I'd used. A video of me hand-sewing the lace, my face clearly visible. I'm L. Morgan, I said, my voice stronger now, looking directly at Vanessa. I've been designing under a pseudonym for the past 3 years, building a career while you thought I was struggling and miserable. The costume you've been wearing tonight, the one you've been accepting compliments for all evening, I made it. Every single stitch. The ballroom had descended into absolute chaos. People were talking over each other, pointing at the screens, taking photos and videos. This would be viral within minutes. Vanessa opened and closed her mouth several times, no sound coming out. Her face had gone from pale to bright red. You're L. Morgan? She finally managed to say. That's impossible. It's very possible, I said calmly. In fact, according to your assistant, you love my work so much you've already requested 3 more commissions. I paused for effect. You paid $18,000 for this costume, Vanessa, and you had no idea your poor little sister with the clearance rack chic costume made it for you. Someone in the audience actually gasped. I saw at least 20 phones recording. Vanessa looked like she was going to be sick. Or scream. Or both. I turned back to the audience, my confidence growing with every word. Some of you might remember another time my sister took credit for my work. In June 2021, she wore a wedding dress to her wedding, a dress I designed and created by hand over 3 months. She told everyone it was made by Antoine Beaumont, a famous French designer. She paid him to claim credit because she said my name wasn't prestigious enough. That wearing something made by her little sister sounded cheap. More gasps. More whispers. Vanessa was shaking her head, tears forming in her eyes, but I kept going. That betrayal broke me. It made me leave New York. I spent years rebuilding myself, learning to trust my talent again. And you know what? I created something beautiful from that pain. I created a career where my work speaks for itself, where I don't need famous names or Instagram followers to prove my worth. I looked at Vanessa, and my voice softened slightly, not with forgiveness, but with something like pity. You're wearing a costume that represents everything I've become despite you. Not because of you, and the irony is you loved it. You felt beautiful in it. You wanted more of my work, because deep down, past all the labels and status symbols and Instagram followers, quality and artistry still matter. And you recognized it, even when you didn't know it came from me. The room was completely silent now, everyone hanging on every word. But you know what? I said, my voice becoming gentle. I'm not here for revenge. I'm not here to humiliate you. I'm here because I genuinely love what I do. I love creating beautiful things that make people feel confident and special. And I'm grateful that my work, even when you didn't know it was mine, made you feel that way tonight. I turned back to the audience. So here's my auction item. A full custom design consultation and original garment from L. Morgan Designs. I'll work with the winner to create something uniquely theirs, something that expresses who they really are. Bidding starts at $10,000, and every penny goes to the Manhattan Arts Foundation. For a moment, absolutely no one moved. The room was frozen. Then a woman in the front row, I recognized her as a fashion editor I'd seen in magazines, stood up and raised her paddle. $10,000! $15,000, called another voice. $20,000. Someone else shouted. Suddenly, the room erupted. Paddles were flying up everywhere. The bidding war was fierce. $25,000. $30,000. $35,000. $40,000. Richard stood frozen on stage, looking between me and Vanessa, clearly trying to process what was happening. Vanessa had tears streaming down her face, her perfect makeup ruined, her hands clutching at the burgundy velvet I'd spent weeks perfecting. $45,000. A woman in an elaborate Venetian mask stood up. $50,000, countered the fashion editor. $55,000, shouted a third voice, a woman I recognized from photos as a tech CEO who'd recently gone through a very public divorce. The auctioneer, a professional Richard had hired for the event, finally found his voice. Do I hear $60,000? Silence. Everyone held their breath. $55,000 going once. Going twice? $60,000? Another paddle shot up. Finally, after what felt like an eternity but was probably only 3 minutes, the fashion editor won with a final bid of $72,000. The room exploded in applause. People were standing, cheering, some of them actually crying. Claire was still photographing everything, tears streaming down her own face. I handed the microphone back to Richard, who took it mechanically, and walked off the stage. My legs were shaking so badly I could barely stand. Claire caught me at the bottom of the stairs and hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. That was the most badass thing I've ever witnessed, she whispered. You absolute legend. Behind us on stage, Vanessa had turned away from the audience, her shoulders shaking. Richard put his arm around her, trying to comfort her while simultaneously trying to smile for the crowd. I didn't stay to watch. I walked straight through the ballroom, out the front door, and into the cool October night. Chapter 24. The Immediate. Aftermath. Claire and I sat in her car in the Whitfield Estate driveway for 20 minutes, neither of us speaking. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I felt dizzy. Did I really just do that? I finally whispered. Yes, Claire said. And it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. My phone started buzzing, and buzzing, and buzzing. Texts, emails, Instagram notifications, unknown numbers calling. I turned it off completely. I need to go home, I said. I need to process this. I can't think right now. You're not driving, Claire said firmly. I'll take you home. We'll figure everything else out tomorrow. The drive back to Brooklyn was quiet. Claire played soft music and didn't try to make me talk. She understood that I needed silence, needed to sit with what had just happened. When we got to my apartment at midnight, she insisted on staying. She made tea, ordered Thai food even though neither of us was hungry, and set up camp on my couch. You're not facing whatever comes next alone, she said simply. I finally turned my phone back on at 1 a.m. The notifications were overwhelming. Hundreds of them. But a few stood out. A text from Miranda Chen. Ms. Morgan, I just saw what happened at the gala. I had no idea about your history with Mrs. Whitfield. I'm so sorry for putting you in that position. If it matters, the design community is rallying behind you. You're trending on Twitter. Your website crashed. This is unprecedented. An email from the fashion editor who'd won the auction. Lena, I'm Josephine Hart from Vogue. What you did tonight was incredibly brave. I'd love to feature your story and your work in an upcoming issue. Please contact me when you're ready. An email from Sandra, my former boutique owner in Portland. I just saw the videos. Girl, call me when you can breathe again. You're about to become very famous very fast. Are you ready for that? And then, at 2 a.m., a text from an unknown number that made my heart stop. Lena, it's Vanessa. We need to talk, please. I stared at it for a long time before showing Claire. You don't have to respond, she said. Not tonight. Not until you're ready. Maybe not ever. I know, I said, but I saved the number anyway. Chapter 25. The viral moment. I woke up at 9 a.m. on November 1st to Claire shaking my shoulder. Lena, wake up. You need to see this. She held her phone in front of my face. I blinked blearily at the screen, Elle Morgan Revealed was trending #1 on Twitter. Videos of my revelation were everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, even making news sites. Designer exposes sister's theft at Halloween. Gala. Elle Morgan comes out of the shadows in most dramatic way possible. Influencer Vanessa Moore Whitfield, caught wearing sister's design after years of betrayal, someone had edited the video with dramatic music. Another person had created a side-by-side comparison of my wedding dress story and the costume reveal. A fashion historian had posted a thread about the importance of crediting designers and the history of idea theft in fashion. My website had crashed from traffic. My email inbox had over 2,000 unread messages. My Instagram, which I'd barely used and had maybe 400 followers, now had 150,000 followers and counting. "This is insane," I whispered. "This is justice," Claire corrected. "The internet loves a good underdog story. And you're the ultimate underdog who became successful on her own terms." My phone rang. A New York number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Lena Moore? A professional woman's voice. "Yes? This is Rebecca Steinberg from The Times. I'm writing a piece about last night's revelation and would love to get your perspective." "Do you have time for an interview? I don't think I'm ready to talk to press yet," I said. "I understand. But when you are ready, please reach out. Your story deserves to be told properly." That call was followed by dozens more. Morning shows wanting me as a guest, podcasts requesting interviews, even a book agent asking if I'd considered writing a memoir. It was overwhelming, exciting, terrifying. Around noon, my business phone rang. The line I used exclusively for Elle Morgan Designs. I almost didn't answer it either, but it might be a client. Elle Morgan Designs, this is Lena. Ms. Moore, this is Catherine Westbrook from Bergdorf Goodman. We'd like to discuss carrying your line exclusively in our designer section. Would you be available for a meeting this week? I nearly dropped the phone. Bergdorf Goodman, one of the most prestigious department stores in the world. Yes, I'd be available. Wonderful. How does Tuesday at 2 p.m. sound? That sounds perfect. When I hung up, I started laughing. Then crying. Then laughing again. What happened? Claire demanded. Bergdorf Goodman wants to carry my line, I said, still not quite believing it. This is actually happening. This is real. Chapter 26. Vanessa's response: for 3 days, I ignored Vanessa's texts. She sent several, "Lena, please. I need to explain. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But can we talk? Please, I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but I'm so sorry." On November 3rd, I finally responded, "What do you want to say?" Her reply came immediately. "Can we meet? In person? Coffee somewhere neutral?" I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore her forever, to let her sit with what she'd done without giving her the closure of an explanation or apology. But another part of me, the part that remembered us as kids, that remembered moments when we'd actually been close, needed to hear what she had to say. "Okay, tomorrow. The coffee shop on 5th and Broadway. 2 p.m. Thank you. I'll be there." I almost brought Claire for moral support, but this felt like something I needed to do alone. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, ordered a latte I didn't drink, and sat at a corner table where I could see the door. Vanessa arrived exactly on time. She looked different than I'd ever seen her. No makeup, hair in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of designer clothes. She looked exhausted, smaller somehow. She sat down across from me, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup, her eyes red from crying. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." I almost didn't, I admitted. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. "I'm so sorry, Lena," she finally said, her voice cracking. "For everything. The wedding dress, the costume, every time I made you feel small or dismissed your talent. All of it, I'm so sorry. Why?" I asked. "Why did you do it?" "I need to understand." She took a shaky breath. "Because I was jealous." I blinked, surprised. "Jealous of what?" "You had everything. You had something real," she interrupted. "You had actual talent, real creativity. You could create beautiful things with your hands, make people feel special through your art. I never had that. Everything I built was fake, borrowed credibility, Other people's products, other people's clothes, other people's validation through likes and followers. She looked down at her coffee. When you showed me that wedding dress design, I knew it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I knew it was yours, truly yours, in a way nothing in my life was truly mine. So I took it. I told myself I was being strategic, being smart about my brand. But really, I was just stealing the one thing you had that I could never have, genuine talent. Tears were running down her face now. And then with the costume, I didn't even know it was yours. Miranda handled everything. When I found out that night, when you revealed it in front of everyone, I realized I'd done it again without even meaning to. I'd taken your work, claimed it as mine, because that's who I'd become, someone who takes instead of creates. I felt tears pricking my own eyes. You have no idea how much you hurt me. Both times. I know, she whispered. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I see what you've become despite me. You're incredible, Lena. You always were. I was just too insecure and selfish to admit it. What happens now? I asked. I posted a full statement on Instagram this morning, she said. A real one. Taking full responsibility for what happened with your wedding dress. Explaining that you're Elle Morgan, that you designed both pieces, that I claimed credit for your work, and I was wrong. No excuses, no spin. Just the truth. She pulled out her phone and showed me. It was a long, detailed post with photos of both the wedding dress and the costume. The caption was honest and raw, admitting her jealousy and her mistakes, praising my talent, apologizing publicly. The comments were brutal. Her followers were turning on her. Sponsors were dropping her. Her carefully constructed brand was crumbling. I'm losing everything, she said quietly. Followers, deals, respect. Richard's family is furious. They think the scandal reflects poorly on the Whitfield name. But I deserve it. I deserve all of it. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated. This was the consequence she'd earned. But mostly I just felt sad. I don't want you to lose everything, I said softly. I just wanted you to acknowledge what you did, to see me as someone with value. You have so much value, she said, crying harder now. You always did. I just couldn't see it, because I was too busy being threatened by it. We sat there for a long time, two sisters who'd hurt each other and been hurt, trying to figure out if there was any way forward. I don't know if we can fix this, I finally said. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't expect you to, she said. I just hope that someday, maybe years from now, we might be able to start over. Not as we were, but as who we're becoming. Maybe, I said. Someday. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was something. A small crack in the wall between us. The possibility that healing might be possible, even if it took years. Chapter 27. The media storm. The next few weeks were a whirlwind I could never have prepared for. My interview with Josephine Hart from Vogue came out on November 15th. It was a beautiful, thoughtful piece about creativity, family dynamics, and the importance of crediting artists. The photos Claire had taken of me in my studio were stunning. Soft light, surrounded by fabric and sketches, looking confident and at peace. The article went viral. Suddenly everyone wanted to talk about Elle Morgan designs. I did a few carefully selected interviews. Good Morning America, a fashion podcast, an NPR feature about women in design. Each time I told my story honestly but without cruelty. I didn't bash Vanessa. I simply explained what had happened and how I'd rebuilt myself. The fashion industry rallied around me in ways I never expected. Established designers spoke out about the importance of credit and how common idea theft was. Boutiques reached out wanting to carry my work. Celebrities requested custom pieces. My meeting with Bergdorf Goodman led to an exclusive partnership. They'd carry a small collection of my ready-to-wear pieces, elevated, elegant clothes for real women, priced accessibly but not cheaply. It was everything I'd dreamed of. By December, I'd hired a full team, 4 seamstresses, a business manager, a social media coordinator, Claire officially joined the company, and an assistant to handle the overwhelming number of inquiries. I moved the studio to a larger space in Soho, a beautiful loft with high ceilings, perfect light, and enough room for everyone to work comfortably. My Instagram grew to 500,000 followers. Unlike Vanessa's carefully curated feed, mine was honest, showing the messy process of creation, the late nights, the failures and revisions, the joy of seeing a finished piece. People responded to the authenticity. On December 10th, I received an email that made me cry. Dear Ms. Moore, I'm writing on behalf of the Council of Fashion Designers of America. We'd like to nominate you for the Emerging Designer Award at next year's CFDA Fashion Awards. Your story and your work exemplify the spirit of American fashion, resilience, innovation, and authentic artistry. Would you accept the nomination? I called my parents immediately. They'd watched everything unfold from their home in Millbrook, proud, but worried about all the attention. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice shaking. I'm being nominated for a CFDA award. My mother started crying. My father's voice was thick with emotion. We always knew you were special, honey. We're so proud of you. I'm proud of me too, I said, and meant it. Chapter 28. Christmas Reconciliation. Christmas 2024 was complicated. My parents had invited both Vanessa and me to Millbrook for the holidays, like they did every year. I hadn't committed to going. The wounds were still too fresh, the relationship still too broken. But on December 20th, my mother called. Lena, sweetheart, I know this year has been incredibly difficult, and I'm not asking you to forgive Vanessa or pretend everything is fine. But it's Christmas. You're both my daughters. Could you please come home? We can keep things civil and simple. Just family dinner. Nothing dramatic. I thought about saying no, about spending Christmas in New York with Claire, avoiding the awkwardness and pain. But these were my parents. They'd always supported me, always believed in me. They deserved to have their family together, even if that family was fractured. Okay, I said, I'll come, but only for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And if it gets too uncomfortable, I'm leaving. That's all I ask, my mother said, relief evident in her voice. I drove up to Millbrook on the afternoon of December 24th. The town looked like a Christmas card. Snow on the ground, lights on every house, the hardware store decorated with wreaths. My childhood home looked exactly as I remembered. My father had strung lights along the roof. The wreath my mother made every year hung on the front door. Through the window, I could see the Christmas tree we'd always decorated together as a family. I took a deep breath and walked inside. Lena, my mother hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. My father joined in, and for a moment, I felt like a kid again, safe and loved. Vanessa's in the living room, my mother said quietly. She got here about an hour ago. Please, just be kind to each other, for us. I found Vanessa sitting on the couch, staring at the Christmas tree. She looked up when I entered, her expression uncertain. Hi, she said softly. Hi, I replied. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. The house smelled like my mother's cookies and pine from the tree and home. Nice sweater, Vanessa said, gesturing to the dark green sweater I was wearing. Thanks. I made it. Of course you did, she said with a small smile. It's beautiful. More silence. Then Vanessa spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been in therapy since November, working through everything. The jealousy, the competition, why I needed to diminish you to feel big. It's been hard, really hard. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something different. Humility, maybe, or genuine remorse. That's good, I said. I'm glad you're doing that work. My therapist says I need to learn to celebrate other people's success without seeing it as my failure, she continued. It's harder than it sounds, but I'm trying. I believe you, I said, surprising myself. Dinner that night was surprisingly pleasant. We talked about neutral topics, my parents' business, the town gossip, funny memories from childhood. Vanessa and I didn't interact much, but we were civil, polite. After dinner, my father put on old Christmas movies. My mother brought out hot chocolate. We all sat together in the living room like we used to, and for a few hours, we were just a family again. Later that night, as I was getting ready for bed in my old room, there was a knock on the door. Come in, I said. Vanessa entered, holding something wrapped in tissue paper. I got you something, she said. For Christmas. You don't have to open it now if you don't want to. She handed it to me and turned to leave. Wait, I said. Open it with me. She sat on the edge of my bed while I unwrapped the tissue paper. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal with my initials embossed on the cover. The paper inside was thick and creamy, perfect for sketching. For your designs, Vanessa said. I thought you might like it. It's perfect, I said honestly. Thank you. There's something else, she said, pulling out her phone. I want to show you something, but it might upset you. She showed me her Instagram. Her follower count had dropped from 1.2 million to about 600,000. Many of her sponsors had dropped her, but she'd pivoted her content completely. Instead of luxury and aspiration, she was posting about her therapy journey, her mistakes, the reality behind influencer culture. She was being vulnerable and honest in ways she never had been before. I know I've lost a lot, she said, and I deserve it. But the weird thing is, the people who've stayed, they're more engaged now than they ever were. They appreciate the honesty, and I feel lighter, like I'm not performing anymore. I'm glad, I said, and meant it. You deserve to be happy. Really happy, not just Instagram happy. So do you, she said. And you are. I can see it. You're glowing, Lena. Success looks good on you. We hugged. It wasn't the close sisterly embrace we'd shared as kids, but it was something. A start. Chapter 29. New Year, New Beginnings. I rang in 2025 in Brooklyn with Claire and a small group of friends from the fashion industry. Nothing fancy, just champagne, homemade food, and good conversation in my apartment overlooking the city. At midnight, as fireworks exploded over the East River, Claire raised her glass. To Lena Moore, aka Elle Morgan, who took the biggest risk of her life and won. To honesty, to talent, and to never letting anyone steal your light again. To new beginnings, I added, and to the best friend anyone could ask for. We clinked glasses and watched the city celebrate, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Happy New Year, little sister. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I won't waste it. I smiled and responded. Happy New Year. Keep doing the work. January brought new challenges and opportunities. The CFDA nomination became official. Bergdorf Goodman's spring collection launched to rave reviews. I was invited to show a small collection at New York Fashion Week in February. Fashion Week was surreal. My collection was called Emerging, pieces that represented transformation, growth, the journey from darkness to light. Each garment told a story. There was a dress in soft gray that gradually lightened to white, representing hope after despair. A structured jacket that looked severe from one angle, but revealed delicate embroidery underneath, showing hidden strength. An evening gown that appeared simple, but moved like water, representing fluid adaptability. The collection was deeply personal without being literal. No one in the audience needed to know about Vanessa or the betrayal or the Halloween party. They just needed to feel the emotion in the work, and they did. The reviews were incredible. Elle Morgan emerges as a voice of authenticity in an industry obsessed with perfection. These designs speak to the resilience of the human spirit. Moore creates clothes that honor the women wearing them. After the show, as models and designers and industry people mingled, I saw Vanessa standing at the back of the venue. She hadn't been invited. Fashion Week wasn't really her world anymore, but she'd come anyway. We made eye contact across the room. She smiled, genuine and proud, and gave me a small wave. I waved back. Then she left, and I turned back to my celebration, surrounded by people who saw my value, who celebrated my success, who wanted to lift me up instead of tear me down. Chapter 30. The CFDA Awards. The CFDA Fashion Awards took place on June 2, 2025, at the Brooklyn Museum. I wore one of my own designs, of course, a midnight blue gown with subtle silver embroidery that caught the light like stars. It was elegant without being showy, confident without being loud. It was me. Claire came as my date, dressed in a stunning suit I'd made for her. My parents drove down from Millbrook, Even Susan Chen, my old boss from Marcella and Cohen, came to support me. The ceremony was filled with fashion industry luminaries, designers I'd admired for years, celebrities in stunning gowns, photographers and journalists documenting everything. When they announced the nominees for Emerging Designer, they showed a short video about each of us. Mine included footage from the Halloween party, the revelation, the auction, the applause, along with shots of my designs, my studio, my work process. The host, a famous actress, read the nominees: Lena Moore, L. Morgan Designs, Marcus Chen, Chen Atelier, Sofia Rodriguez, Rodriguez Couture, and Yuki Tanaka, Tanaka Studio. Everyone in that category deserved to win. They were all incredibly talented. And the winner is... The actress opened the envelope, paused for dramatic effect, and smiled. Lena Moore, L. Morgan Designs. The room erupted in applause. Claire was crying. My mother was crying. I was crying. I walked to the stage in a daze, accepted the award, a beautiful crystal sculpture, and stood at the microphone. Thank you, I said, my voice shaking. Thank you to the CFDA for this incredible honor. Thank you to everyone who believed in my work before they knew who I was. Thank you to the women who wear my designs and trust me to help them feel beautiful. I paused, gathering my thoughts. 3 years ago, I was broken. Someone I loved had stolen credit for my work, and I thought maybe I wasn't good enough, wasn't talented enough, wasn't worthy of success. I almost gave up on design entirely. I held up the award. But this proves that good work finds its way, that authenticity matters, that you don't need famous names or Instagram followers or powerful connections to create something meaningful. You just need talent, persistence, and the courage to keep going even when people try to dim your light. More applause. I saw several people in the audience wiping their eyes. So to anyone out there who's been overlooked, dismissed, or had their work stolen, keep creating. Keep believing in yourself. Keep putting beauty into the world. Eventually, the right people will see it. And when they do, it will be because of your merit, your artistry, your authentic voice. No one can take that from you. I looked out at the audience and saw so many faces smiling at me with genuine warmth and respect. Thank you for seeing me, I said. Thank you for celebrating not just my success, but the journey that got me here. This means everything. The applause as I walked off stage was deafening. Backstage, Claire tackled me in a hug. You did it. You actually did it. We did it, I corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Later that night, at the after party, I received a text from Vanessa. I watched the ceremony live stream. Your speech made me cry. I'm so proud of you, Lena. You deserve every bit of this success. I'm sorry I ever made you doubt that. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on, thank you. That means a lot. It wasn't complete forgiveness. We still had a long way to go before our relationship could heal fully, if it ever did. But it was progress. And progress was enough. Epilogue. Halloween 2025. It's October 31st, 2025. 1 year exactly since the Halloween party that changed everything. I'm in my Soho studio, putting the finishing touches on a costume commission. It's for a client attending a charity gala tonight, not the Whitfield Gala. I politely declined that invitation this year. This one is being held at the Met for childhood literacy. The costume is a phoenix, layers of red, orange, and gold that seem to catch fire in the light, with wings that spread dramatically. It represents rebirth, transformation, rising from the ashes. It feels appropriate. My team has grown to 12 people now. We moved to an even larger space last month. L. Morgan Designs is thriving. We're carried in boutiques across the country, have a robust online presence, and a wait list that stretches into next year. But more than the success, what I'm proud of is the culture I've built. Everyone who works for me is credited for their contributions. I pay fair wages. I create an environment where people feel valued and respected. I learned from my pain what not to do, and I'm building something better. Claire walks into the studio carrying coffee and pastries from our favorite bakery. Happy Halloween, boss, she says, grinning. Or should I say, happy anniversary of the greatest revenge moment in fashion history. I laugh. I prefer to think of it as the night I reclaimed my narrative. Potato, she says, Are you going to wear a costume tonight? Maybe, I say. I made something simple. A silver dress that looks like moonlight. Comfortable but elegant. Not a witch costume, she teases. Definitely not a witch costume, I confirm. Though that one did serve its purpose. My phone buzzes. A text from my mother. Your father and I are so proud of you. Happy anniversary of your big moment. Also, Vanessa asked if you'd like to have coffee next week when you visit. No pressure, just if you're comfortable. I think about it. Vanessa and I have been slowly rebuilding. Monthly coffee dates, occasional texts, family dinners that are less awkward now. We're not close like we were as kids, and maybe we never will be again. But we're finding a new normal, a relationship based on honesty instead of competition. I text back, tell her yes. Wednesday at 2 p.m. at the usual place. As I pack up the Phoenix costume for delivery, I think about how much has changed in a year. Last Halloween, I walked into a party feeling small and insecure, wearing a cheap costume, expecting to be dismissed. I left that party having reclaimed my power, my identity, my art. This Halloween, I'm spending the evening at a charity gala where people respect my work, celebrating with friends who genuinely support me, wearing a dress that makes me feel like the best version of myself. No masks, no pretending, just me as I am, exactly enough. Claire catches me smiling. What are you thinking about? Just that a year ago, I thought revenge would feel like victory, I say. But actually, building a life I love feels so much better. Very zen of you, Claire says. Also very annoying. I was hoping for more drama. I laugh. Sorry to disappoint. You could never disappoint, she says seriously. You're literally the most impressive person I know. We pack up the studio and head out into the autumn evening. The city is decorated for Halloween. Orange lights, carved pumpkins, people in costumes heading to parties. It's a beautiful night. Cool but not cold. The perfect time of year when everything is transforming, letting go of what was to make room for what's coming next. I think about the girl I was. Talented but uncertain, desperately seeking approval from people who didn't value her. And I think about who I've become. A designer with her own voice. Her own success, her own story. The journey wasn't easy. The betrayal hurt deeply. The healing took time. But here I am, still creating, still growing, still putting beauty into the world. And no one, not Vanessa, not anyone, can ever take that from me again. As Claire and I walk down the street laughing about something silly, my phone buzzes one more time. It's from the client I made the Phoenix costume for. Just picked it up. Lena, this is the most incredible thing I've ever worn. I feel powerful and beautiful and completely myself. Thank you for your art. You're a magician. I smile and tuck my phone away. That's why I do this. Not for awards or recognition or revenge, but for those moments when a woman puts on something I've created and feels like the most magnificent version of herself. That's the real magic. That's the real success. Everything else is just details.